Introduction Toward an Integrative View of Identity by Vivian L. Pignols, Seth J. Schwartz, and Cohen Luix by ResearchGate. The definition of identity in the society. Identity is a powerful construct. It guides life paths and decisions, allows people to draw strength from their affiliation with social groups and collectives, and explains many of the destructive behaviors that people carry out against members of opposing ethnic, cultural, or national groups. Indeed, in scholarly work, the term identity has been used to refer to many different things, referent as diverse as people's internal meaning systems, characteristics, and attachments conferred through a group memberships, nationalism, positions taken in a conversations, and social historical currents in belief systems. The term identity also has found widespread use in popular culture, where its meaning is equally unclear. What is identity as a social definition? Identity comprises not only who do you think you are, between parentheses individually or collectively, but also who you act as being in interpersonal and intergroup interactions, and the social recognition or otherwise that these actions receive from other individuals or groups. Thus, the identity questions, who are you, actually encompasses a range of diverse but related contents and processes, and these are emphasized in different fields of research and in different theoretical and metatheoretical perspectives. Despite this breadth, our definition of identity does not simply encompass all possible characteristics that might be used to describe someone. In popular and academic discourse, the term identity is sometimes applied as a catch all label for biological characteristics, psychological dispositions, and or socio-demographic positions. Characteristics such as gender, social status, intelligence, status, skin color, profession, religion become part of identity to the extent that they are interpreted and infused with personal and social meaning, and that these meanings are applied to define individuals or groups. In other words, to the extent that people use them to answer the question, who are you? Forms and contents of definition identity. Existing approaches to identity typically focus on one or more of three different levels at which identity may be defined: individual, relational, and collective and material identities. Individual or personal identity refers to aspects of self definition at the level of individual person. This may include goals, values, and beliefs, religious and spiritual beliefs, standards for behavior and decision making, self esteem, and goals, and self evaluation, often emphasizing the agentic role of individual in creating or discovering his or her own identity. Relational identity refers to one's roles vis-a-vis other people, encompassing identity contents such as child, spouse, parent, co-worker, supervisor, customer, seller, etc. Relational identity refers not only to these roles but also to how they are defined and interpreted by the individuals who assume them. In terms of rela- relational identity processes, many approaches hold that identity is defined and located within interpersonal space. Collective identity refers to people's identification with the groups and social categories to which they belong, the meanings that they give to these social groups and categories, and feelings, beliefs, and attitudes that results from identifying with them. Material identities, which are thing, which are things things that are beyond a personal identity, such as person's identity, can include not only her mind, body, friends, spouse, ancestors, and descendants, but also her clothes, house, car, and the contents of her bank account. Clearly, multiple aspects of identity can and do coexist in the sense that a single individual can identify himself simultaneously as a doctor, skilled tennis player, an expecting father, a Cuban American, a Miami resident, academically able, a BMW driver, and many other things. Of course, these different aspects of identity will be more or less salient and relevant in different social contexts. Nevertheless, multiple aspects of identity are not independent of each other. Rather, they are intersect and interact with each other. The range of identity categories available in a given social context and the meanings that are given to them are constructed through a confluence of social processes over historical time as well. Thus, identities are inescapably both personal and social, not only in their content but also in the process by which they are formed, maintained, and changed over time. It seems important to clarify at this stage that people are not necessarily aware of their identity processes that are at work. Clearly, many identity processes are undertaken deliberately and may involve a great deal of conscious effort on the part of individuals and groups. Many processes of personal identity formation, such as exploring potential goals, values, and beliefs, and committing oneself to one or more of the options considered, are typically conceptualized as conscious, purposeful, and recent choices made by individuals similarly. Accounts of identity politics and social change tend to emphasize the importance of collective consciousness, such that awareness of occupying a disadvantaged identity position in common with others is an important precursor to collective empowerment and action. A single identity or multiple identities. There are a number of possible ways of resolving these questions. As we have already illustrated, it is self evident that every individual's identity is multifaceted, in the simple sense that a person can describe herself in multiple ways, for example, as a mother, as a musical person, and Australian. In one sense, whether these things are described as separate identities or as a components of a single identity is simply a question of terminology, a definitional question rather than a real substantive problem. But it is also a question of one's frame of reference. If one is focusing on an individual, musically talented Australian mother who simultaneously occupies these multiple categories, then it makes best sense to view them as a components of her identity. On the other hand, if one is focusing on Australian national identity and its meaning in Australian cultural discourse, then it makes better sense to view this as an identity that can be considered independently of any particular individual who may endorse it. However, we must not lose sight of the fact that these two framings do not refer to exactly the same thing, and therefore they do not contradict one another. Nonetheless, there is a further sense in which the multifaceted nature of identity could be seen to pose a problem for unity hierarchical approaching.